somebody took it. So, one of you fine fellows have this? Possibly. No, that's not needed. Well, okay. Gee, thanks for the encouragement. Yeah, I'll find it too late. That's a good idea. We could do that. It's such fun being in a congenial group. So, anyway, pardon me for the slight interruption, but good morning, everybody. My name is Bob Harris, and I want to speak to you today from an uncommon experience, that of being a gay dad. Men in the church men's group have said, I have no idea what it means to be a gay dad, so tell us. I want to emphasize that this is my own story and not typical of all gay dads. Honestly, I'm not sure that it means anything different in particular from being a dad at all. My ex-wife and I had 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. We were married for 29 years and then divorced. So I was able to parent them until the boys were 23 and 19 and my daughter was 15. Our home life, and for that matter, most things in my own life, were extremely conventional. Even though I knew I was gay from the earliest age, for a variety of reasons, I chose not to act on my feelings. There were no positive gay role models at the time, which was the late 1950s, early 1960s, and I didn't know of anyone I could discuss this with, and back then, the very topic was taboo. So I chose to live life as a straight man. I was fortunate to have had a good education and a successful career. After graduating college in 1967, I soon married a woman whom I had known since high school. We had a good marriage and very few bumps in the road. No overt tragedies presented themselves, and on the surface, everything seemed just fine for all those years. We had no money problems, no serious health issues, and not one of our 3 kids ended up in jail. As a dad, I enjoyed spending time with my kids and especially loved taking them to museums and to live theater. One of my best memories was our involvement in the YMCA Indian Guide program. And I was in that with my sons for 3 years each, and with Indian princesses with my daughter, 6 years total for her. We almost never missed a tribe meeting, a weekend camp out, overnight at the Y, or a carnival. When it came time to sell popcorn and chocolate bars as a fundraiser, we dressed up in our decorated leather vests and went door to door selling those and raising money. I was even an officer for the local program for a few years. My kids are grown and all doing very well with families of their own. My ex-wife is happily married to a great guy, and everyone gets along well with everyone else. That's my reflection on what it means to be a gay dad. You could say, my being gay has no particular meaning at all as far as my role as a father. We did divorce after 29 years of marriage when we were both 50 and our youngest was 15. It was amicable and we still get together for family events. After I began to explore the gay community and started dating men, I eventually started a new kind of family, not to ill you there, and have now been living with my partner Jeff for 10 years. Frankly, what I find more interesting and what I am most proud of is the way I chose to father my children. My own father, apparently overwhelmed with many issues when I was born, dealt with things by immersing himself totally in the business he owned. Even though we lived in the same large house, I have no memory of being with him at all until I was 5 years old. And throughout my life, he worked 7 days a week, usually 12 hours a day, at his office. We did almost nothing as a family, and I was essentially raised by my maternal grandparents who lived with us. However, they were in their 70s when I was born and had little energy to tend to a small child. Therefore, when my children were born, I was determined to do as much with them as I could. Even with a professional career, I resolved to work no more than 40 hours a week and to look for every opportunity to be with them, which I did. When I confessed my long-held secret that I was gay, my kids' reaction, instead of being one of horror or disgust, was one of wholehearted acceptance. I think this points to the kind of people they turned out to be and the kind of relationship we have. I was ashamed and afraid in telling them my truth, but my 15-year-old daughter said, "Oh, that's okay, Dad. You're the same person you always were. That's just one thing we didn't know about you." My oldest son, who has a very strong social conscience, said enthusiastically, "This is great news, Dad. Now you can become an activist." And my other son, who had always heard me playing songs from older musical comedies on the phonograph or piano, calmly said, "Well, Dad, we should have known all along. It was the show tunes." So, what's it like to be a gay dad? In my case, it's like being a dad. Thanks for listening.
Good morning. My name is Bill Kovacs. I've been a member here for over 25 years, and I've been married to Agnes for 48. I'm the proud father of Wendy and Mary Helen. Wendy was married here in our old sanctuary. She's an active member of the church, and she and our two grandchildren are often seen around here. So by Ilya's presentation, I'm sort of the standard boring old white guy model. But I am a family man. I'm also an only child, so I don't have a lot of interesting family stories to share. But I'm very interested in law and economics, so my talk is going to talk about our family's legal entities. What type of legal entity do you think of when you hear me say the word family? Was your first thought an economic entity? Or is the old taboo about, we'll talk about a lot of things around here, but people still are reluctant to talk about money? In the US, there are currently 1,079 federal level economic benefits or entitlements that are based on the legal status of a person as a current or former member of a family. Who gets money depends on terms such as spouse, child, dependent. You may not know it, but these 1,079 laws define these three words very differently. There is not uniformity and consistency. Now I'm going to leave the US and talk about families in Europe. Agnes and I just returned from 2 weeks in Denmark. A few years earlier, we spent about the same time in Italy. In terms of every measure about the quality of life, such as good schools, safe and clean cities to live in, good roads to drive on, Denmark is the clear winner, and the food is almost as good. The per person gross domestic product in Denmark is $52,000 a year, which is only $2,000 less than the US. In contrast, in Italy, it's $35,000. So, how would you like to live on 1/3 less money? Italian jurisprudence is based on canon law, which in the Catholic Church was basically codified around 1050. And it's largely based on the famous Roman Corpus Juris of Justinian in 450 AD. So today, from the legal perspective, Italian family law has basically been unchanged for 2,000 years. The fundamental model is a patriarchal model. And under that model, the father is head of the house. They have children. There's a marriage. The mother is responsible for raising children and running the family. So what are the legal and economic consequences of that religious definition of family? It means that the father works outside the home and the mother works, but she's working inside the home. That means that Italian law emphasizes job security, which means one wage earner has to earn enough money to support a family of 4 or 5 or 6, depending on how many kids. So you've got strong unions, restrictive labor practices, protectionist economic policies, and an uncompetitive economy. In contrast, Denmark is a Protestant country, as you probably know, since the Reformation at least. There's an amazing fact that I learned in Denmark. Denmark allocates a percentage of every person's Danish federal level income tax to the Lutheran Church. Now you can opt out of it, but they still have a tithe on every wage earner in the country. Now, Danish law reflects Danish society, right? The law reflects the society. You've got the Protestant work ethic. It assumes a fundamentally different view of the family as an economic unit functioning within the larger society. Work very hard here on earth to prove that you are deserving of God's grace, because there is no Heavenly Father up there that writes paychecks. The Danish model is that the husband and wife both have to work full-time to secure an adequate income for their family. The state provides more services than are provided in the U.S., and a specific concrete example is child care before the child is old enough to go to school. Danish employment policy emphasizes full employment, but not job security. With 2 incomes, it's much easier for the family economic unit to sustain a period of unemployment. The result is an astounding 25% annual job turnover rate for employed adults. I repeat, every year, 1 in 4 people changes their jobs. But with their Protestant work ethic and this capitalistic approach to the economy, they have a vibrant economy that is able to compete on the world stage for income. Back to the U.S. for me to finish. It seems to me that the middle-class family model today, let's say the Naperville demographic, is both husband and wife have to work full-time to have a Naperville lifestyle. But they are paying for some things like preschool childcare from their income, which is different than the Danish model. But the emerging issue is whether or not 2 incomes are going to be adequate. I hope so, but I have my doubts. I hope that after hearing me today, the next time you participate in a discussion about economic issues here or elsewhere, you remember that there are deeply embedded but seldom openly discussed religious traditions behind what you believe about family economics. Thank you for your time.
Family is Family by Casey Musgraves. They're there for your first year. They give you your first beer. When you get your heart broke, they're there for your worst year.
Don't get you at all, but your apple don't fall for too far from them. They own too much wicker and drink too much liquor. You'd wash your hands of them, but blood's always thicker.
You might look just like them. That don't mean you're like them, but you love them. Family is family, in church or in prison. You get what you get.
And you don't get to pick them. They might smoke like chimneys.
But give you their kidneys. Yeah, Friends come in handy, but family is family. They're there when you are married
Divorced,
and remarried.
you fall out of touch, but then someone gets buried.
And you're right back together like no time has ever gone by.
Can't live with them or without them. You might talk about them. But if someone else does, well, then you'll knock them out, cuz.
When it's all said and done, they're the only ones you got. Family is family, in church or in prison. You get what you get,
And you don't get to pick them. They might smoke like chimneys.
but you give you their kidneys. You give their kidneys. You give you their kidneys. Yeah, friends come in handy, but family is family. Yeah, family is funny, they'll ask you for money, even though they know you ain't got no money.
They show up at Christmas, get up in your business. They might not be fancy, but family is family.
You might look just like them, but that don't mean you like them, but you love them.
Good morning. Live long and prosper. Never could get that right. This Vulcan greeting from Mr. Spock introduces my slant on family this morning. I like to think of family as a Starship Enterprise crew, with its diversity reflecting the range of personalities, philosophies, identities, and abilities in our complex family experiences. And as an added bonus, when I first met my wife Caroline and daughter Bailey in 1998, while going through my divorce, our favorite programs on TV were Star Trek Next Generation with Captain Jean-Luc Picard and Star Trek Voyager with Captain Catherine Janeway. With its very diverse crews of humans, Klingons, Vulcans, Borg, Betazoids, to name just a few. I was talking to one of my men's group members this morning. He said he never watched Star Trek, so I hope some of this resonates with most of you anyway. Their enlightened attitudes towards seeing the strengths of diversity inspires me in navigating my own extended family differences as well. And research shows, this is the social work in me, that creating a welcoming culture within our families and our church where people can feel like where they fit in and they feel connected leads to improved health and mental health outcomes. Okay, we got a lot of diversity. So how do we address the difficulties of understanding each other when each of us is so unique? Sometimes I wish that every person had the ability to use the Mr. Spock Vulcan mind meld to remove confusion about what was really going on in another person's mind. What? You say that would be a disaster? We might then have to use the disabling Vulcan nerve pinch? Well, okay, maybe it's better that we don't know exactly what's going on in another person's mind, but the family is indeed the place, the crucible, where we practice our skills at understanding each other as we struggle to maintain ongoing close relationships. We have to negotiate constantly about sharing the space, the TV, the cars, the cooking, the bills, maintenance and cleaning and decluttering, spending priorities, and all the other responsibilities of home life, as well as support each other's job, education, and goals for the future, and our spiritual journeys. And just as on the Starship Enterprise, there is frustration, anger, misunderstanding, negotiation, and problem solving on a day-to-day basis as we strive toward what Star Trek character Data defined as mutual understanding, Our neural pathways have become accustomed to your sensory input patterns. Those of you who've seen the Guardians of the Galaxy 2 movie may remember when one of the characters says, "Why are we yelling at each other? We're supposed to be friends." Another replies, "You're right. We're not acting like friends. We're acting like family." Channeling Captain Kirk, perhaps the challenge is to merely set phasers to stun rather than kill as we manage our family conflicts, like the heated discussions between Trump and Hillary supporters in my extended family, for example. So how do we cope with the challenge of family relationships? I was at a conference on building resiliency in children recently, and one of the speakers talked about the importance of having the humility to blur the line between needing care and providing care. We are all both, no matter what our roles. As Mr. Spock might say, it's highly illogical to think we can do it all without support. As I navigate trying to be a good father with my co-parent Caroline, and I'm tempted to say, "More power to the shield, Scotty," my internal chief engineer replies, "I'm giving her all she's got, Captain. I can't do anymore." We can only do our best. There is no, I got Caroline laughing on that one. Maybe I'll use that in some of our family dialogues. There is no casserole brought to our home to offer support for being parents, and as parents, we can feel alone with our challenges. Being a spouse and a parent, more than school or work, has forced a people pleaser like me to work on the never-ending task of getting my own emotional house in order, to learn better self-care, to get good boundaries and have clear expectations for responsible behavior for myself and others in the family. As a recovering perfectionist parent, and I hated it when I took a quiz here and Carolyn Atkin was leading this workshop on determining your personality style, and I found out I was a perfectionist. I said, "I'm not a perfectionist." And then I realized, yes, I am. One of my challenges is how not to make my child's life about living up to my expectations. As a co-parent and spouse, I've learned it's helpful to seek info, get support, get an experienced parent, for example, who's been through it, sort of like an AA sponsor, and to ask practical questions like, how do I get through Christmas stress? Or how do I get through the major life transition that's coming up next? Paraphrasing Dr. Leonard McCoy's oft-repeated statement, "Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer." I'm a father, not an all-wise magician, and I need everybody's help. And eventually, as fathers boldly go where no man, where no one has gone before, on our own unique life journeys, what we all become is a combination of the environment and the genetics we inherited, our hard work, and learning from our mistakes. Echoing the lament in the Star Trek quote, "Please let me know if there's some other way we can screw up tonight." Mistakes are the painful but often necessary experiential learnings we need in life. I like this parenting advice I heard recently. Provide a long leash, unconditional love, and take care of yourself as a parent. Help your children problem solve and make mistakes, and don't do it for them whenever possible. And as I think about adolescence, with its developmental task of forming a core identity, complicated by the Borg-like peer group and social media influences seemingly saying, "We are the Borg, you are a mere parent, resistance is futile." opposing our attempts to influence our teens' lives, I am reminded that forming an identity is an ever more complex matter in a world of amazing choices, cultural diversity, and identity fluidity. Mr. Spock's comment, "fascinating," comes to mind. Psychologically, our youth need to belong to some place, to be part of a tribe that helps form and support a meaning system for their identity consolidation and stability. I think that our family and our congregation can help provide a healthy part of this base camp of community and belonging. In closing, it is my wish for all of us, as we ponder our response to Commander Pavel Chekhov's query, "Course heading, Captain?" that we continue improving in our ability to create a Star Trek-like culture where our strengths as diverse individuals with different philosophies, beliefs, sexual orientations, gender identities, as well as persons of diverse physical, mental, and emotional abilities and disabilities, are honored, creating that sense of support and belonging that we all need to flourish in life. Beam us up to a welcoming culture, Scotty, and a happy Father's Day to all the people out there who fill the role of a healthy father or substitute father in our lives. Make it so. And we're going to skip the listening exercise in the interests of time, and I'd like to have us move into the offertory now, and I encourage you to be generous to this beautiful Star Trek culture of ours.
Your children. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you, for life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer sees not the mark upon the path of the infinite, and bends you with might, that the arrows may go swift and far. Let the bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. And now, in closing this 2017 annual men's group service, we would like to close with The Marvelous Toy. Please join us for the chorus.